McWilliams. Just say something about yourself a little bit, and I'll say, turn it off and see if it comes out.
Oh,
You'd say the same things you were saying to me.
well, I'm
So
glad to know you, Mrs. Gilbert.
And what about you were saying about the beginning of the lake?
As I remember it, yeah, well, I was sold papers and shined shoes here in Roscommon, see, and I met a lot of these people in the barber shop. That's because my dad had the barber shop, and there was a pool room next door. So I just got acquainted with a lot of those old people. That southwest corner seems to me to be the one. There were several hotels around the lake, but the west side and the southwest corner was the one that seemed to be settled by people from Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
And
Was
they,
it at the Skingley Hotel?
Well, the Skingsley was on the north end.
Oh,
There
I
were
see.
also they were all people from, I used to peddle papers around that lake to the Skingsley Hotel,
Oh, really?
the
Yeah.
Cole Hotel, and the Carpenter Hotel. Oh, yeah. Woodrow Lockery and I.
Oh, yeah, the little lock race.
The Lockery, his
Yeah.
dad had the papers for this area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mary Lockray and I have been friends for a long time.
You know Mary?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
we've been
yeah.
playing together. I played the
Well, her
violin
husband and I
together.
grew up together here.
Oh, you did? Oh.
Yeah, that's how we knew about peddling the papers. We'd leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we'd walk around Higgins Lake with his father with his truck, and we'd run and peddle these hotels. Then we'd go to Houghton Lake and do the same thing.
Did you go all the way around the
And
lake?
yeah, we'd go all around both lakes, and over on the Houghton Lake, it was the Mounds Hotel, and Brios in the Mounds, and I can't think of the Lone Pine, and
Oh, who were some of the families that were here before the people came up from the hotels that were really the indigenous families?
all
You know,
here
that
in
were
town.
born here, yeah.
Born here.
And on the lake. Was there any indigenous ones at the
Oh,
lake?
At the lake, none that I knew of. None that I knew of. Everybody came to the lake. But see, I don't go back far enough. You'd have to talk to somebody that would be about 120 years old. Yeah,
A little difficult.
that would be a little difficult because, let's see, there was, I guess the Carpenter family was around here, one of the first group around Higgins Lake.
Uh-huh.
And they were on the east shore by the Carpenter Hotel. And in that group, there was the Heislips. They came in with the Woods, and they were woodsmen, and their family have all gone, the Heislips. They went to a...
Evelyn's still here, Evelyn Frazier, wasn't she a high flip?
No, she was a Hydraman.
Oh,
She was a Hydraman, and she married Roy Frazier. But her father had a farm back in the Deadstream, back at the Deadstream swamp there.
you probably know quite a bit, wouldn't you?
Oh, I've already interviewed her, yes.
Oh, you know Evelyn.
Yeah.
Sure. The families here in town were the Cornelius
Oh, yeah.
and the Prices,
The Blanchards,
the Blanchards, the Bressenhans, and the Murphys. And of course the McWilliams family came here 80 years ago.
Where did they come from?
Oh, I was born in a lumber camp in Sheboygan County. They
Oh.
followed the lumber. The reason my dad came back here, the fishing was good here in Roscommon. And he was raised in that hell town called Meredith,
Oh.
see? And he was raised there. He grew up partly in Prudenville with the Whites and the Gardners and that whole group. So they all knew each other. They used to walk between these towns. That's just fan.
Okay, is there any way of turning it off for a few minutes?
Yeah,
Just till we... Is this going to go on the tape recorder here?
I don't know if there is one.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think you
It's
can.
a very efficient.
Very
You
good.
can't turn it on, did he?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. He turned off the
Yeah.
blower anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Well,
little quieter, I
Yeah.
suppose. But
well, let's see, where were we?
we were on all the families, and you got to where you were talking
yeah,
about your
and
past and
that would be about cover at the Lockeries. They were at the halfway, and they came to Roscommon.
Well, I'm listening, yeah.
Uh-huh. No, you were saying that you, your father came, and you were in the lumber camps when you were born? No?
Oh yeah, up
So
in-
you remember what it was like, the lumbering camps?
Oh no, I was a year old when I came here, 79
see.
years ago.
And lumbering was finished around here, I suppose.
Yeah, it
by
was
then?
finished here, but I was born in in Sheboygan County, it was still
Yeah.
going on. And in
Yeah.
1912, they were cutting out the hardwood.
Uh-huh.
See, that's what happened then. What Babcock did you know?
Joe Babcock.
Oh, Joe. Yeah,
Yeah,
he grew
right.
up here.
Right.
Yeah, he's my brother's age. Joe must be about 75.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What's your earliest memory of around here?
Around here,
Yeah.
well, my early memories, this town was about 250, 300 population, and there was a hardware on the corner called Rutledge's, and it was called the Blue Front by the old lumberjacks. They said the old Blue Front. And this Northern Hotel burned 75 years ago. That was the Northern, and the boy that lived in this house is my age, and he sat right here on a sewing machine and watched it burn. He sat right here on a sewing machine and watched it burn. I didn't see it, but they told me about it. See, I lived on the other end of town. Oh yeah, the Rutledge family was here also, and the DeWales.
That's quite a lot.
Oh yeah, the DeWales.
All those names are familiar to me yet.
Oh yeah, the Doyle family is very. One was a lawyer. The old man Doyle was a lawyer, and the boy grew up to be a banker. And one boy was a druggist. Oh yeah, we rented from Henry Doyle our barber shop. Yeah, that old barber shop and post office. They moved when I was in the war. They moved back over on this street next to Jess Green's Tavern. Yeah.
Did you enjoy it here as a child?
Oh, this was a great place to live, yeah. Oh, yeah, it was a real good place.
Weren't the winters pretty hard?
Well, the winters were the same all over, you know. 4 or 5 feet of snow up to the fences, and then you'd get a sleet and you could skate on the sleet, you know.
Oh, could you skate on the streets sometimes?
Well, oh yeah, skate on, we'd go out to the hill, out to the O'Brien Hill.
About how many years ago, one winter, when there wasn't hardly any snow, and Higgins was frozen over, it was just like a glass.
Just like a
went
glass.
out there and skated. We skated all over Higgins Lake.
The only time I've ever seen that. For, maybe better part of a week or so, when it was just frozen solid, and just like glass, all blue, you know,
No snow.
blue water. You
We'd
could
have
see,
to watch there'd be big cracks. We'd have to jump
You'd
over
have to
those.
jump
We'd
the
see them
cracks.
come, you know, ahead of us. But we were young and
but that was 60 years ago.
Yeah. Makes
That
a
would be
difference.
60 years ago.
But they, I can remember back to the first automobiles in Detroit, and when the things were delivered by horses, and was that so up here too?
Oh yeah, all the mail routes, the mail route from Roscommon to Houghton Lake. The Houghton Lake mail route was run by Woodrow Lockree's father, John T. Lockree. And the Mayo mail was run by his brother Mike Lockree and Walt Gardner. It's another family that was here, the Gardner family. That was also another family that was here. Oh yeah, and then there was, I don't know about the Higgins Lake mail.
all
The
the
Higgins Lake mail was run by the carpenters.
all these people that and Lakeside and all around the lake there that would come up and they'd get off the train, and the boy that saw that fire burn, they had liveries, different people did, and they'd take them out to their cottages. They'd stay there all summer, and different farmers would go in and take them vegetables and groceries and like that. All these Taggarts and Indiana and all those people in Lakeside and especially Pine Woods. They were-
Pine Woods and Cottage Grove.
They were from out of state.
Now,
Why don't you sit here when you hear about
yeah,
it?
you can sit right here, Helen. That at the depot, there was several trains a day kept coming in here, and everybody come and meet the train in the summertime, and there was about 22 taxis here. By the Carpenter family. Another family was the Marsh family. It was old Jake Marsh and Norm Marsh and old Marks Marsh. He planted all the maple trees in this town. And and the Gelmores, that would be the boy that sat here, Donald Emery, the Gelmores were here. They came from England.
She had a boarding house.
They had a boarding house over
You
here.
know, that's one historical society's
Yeah.
doing over.
Yeah,
Right,
that
yeah.
they came from a place called El Dorado, Michigan. It's out of town here, 10 miles,
Oh,
where the old Jack Pine post office was,
great.
and that's right out at El Dorado. Yeah, and that the man that was running that mile mail, different ones run it. One of them was Mr. Fry, who was later killed by a team of horses.
Well, how would that happen?
Well, they got away. They run away, and he was working them in the field or something. They got away on him, and they pulled him and killed him. An accident.
What what about the trains and the? I
Oh.
always thought trains were so safe, but I've just been reading in a book recently that the early trains, engineer only expected to live about 11 years after he started his job because they'd get killed in a crash.
Oh, the only train wreck I ever saw was in Roscommon, and it was at the end of town, and us kids would all get into the cookie car. There was a lot of cookies there, and it would be about 70 years ago. I'd be about 10 years old.
Cookies. What's that?
Cookies, peddling, all the bread and everything. Nothing was done by truck or anything. Everything was shipped on trains. There was, maybe a dozen trains come in here every day. 202 and the 206 and the 209 and the 1240 and the 1213 and the midnight. They always said there was one on the midnight. And this big train wreck was up at the Hodgman up here, which was another lumber facility that died out here in Roscommon, called the Hodgman Switch. That's where our mill pond was.
Well, why did it happen? Did they pull the switch the wrong way?
I don't know why, but there weren't many train wrecks.
How old were you at that time? Do you remember about?
When the train was about
Yeah,
10 years old,
10 years old.
that's the only one I ever heard of,
Yeah.
ever saw.
Yeah.
So I don't know too much about
About that.
that. I never heard what you heard.
Did you used to like to go down and watch the trains go past?
Oh, everybody come and did that, It was a big thing when the trains come in.
Yeah.
See, because the taxis were all there. Oh my God, there was the Carpenter brothers, the Bailey brothers, it was Hall, all those people.
Another pretty thing the
Gilmore,
trains used to do.
Emery, and
You'd go
Barber.
over to the depot, and years ago, the arbutus was just all over this land. But see people picking them and pulling them up by the roots. You just never see them anymore. But people used to pick them and put them in little things and take them to the depot and ship them out, like to Detroit and all over, and people would buy them. Well, they were just beautiful. They'd make designs out of them, and I can still see those over on. They had those things at the depot where you pull stuff on. It'd be just lined up with these beautiful arbutus. But you see, you had to pick them. You had to cut them off. But you see, people pulled them up by the roots, and that's why there aren't any more of them.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's too bad.
Those are beautiful, just beautiful.
See, these roads didn't get into Roscommon and like that until real late. They did Zeller and Drum and that bunch. I was about 12, 13 when they started really building the roads up through Michigan and cutting off the traffic. The railroad crossings, cutting those out. 55 wasn't put in till 1930. That's about when 55 went across there. They built that in 1930. And these other ones, Prudenville, that long crossway between the 6 mile and the 9 mile, that every spring you'd see where the logs had come up through and they'd have to patch it up. They were all county roads and maintained by not too much money,
Yeah.
And so they did it with teams. Everything was in teams, and then the gasoline come in and the tax went on and everything improved.
But tell them about you and your dad going and getting your cars. That was something.
Oh, that'd be 1930. Whenever you got a car here, if you wanted to, you could go down with the owner or of the Ford agency or the Chevrolet agency. You could ride down with them, and then you'd drive your own car back.
You'd go right to the plant.
And
buy
you'd
it.
stay
really?
overnight.
Oh, yeah.
You'd stay overnight.
And you and your dad both went.
Well, we both went and got a car in 1930.
And how much were they?
They were, I think, as I remember it, $575.
Yeah.
and a Roadster was $375, something like that.
Well, what did you? That was your very first car, 1930?
Oh no, the first car I had.
Yeah.
Oh no, the Model T was way ahead of that.
Yeah.
Oh
They-
yeah,
they
they
must-
drove those up too. All the cars were driven up,
Mm.
and two or three fellows go down. They bring up two or three cars. You got to remember, at that time, they were real busy and they were selling a lot of cars. And if they sold 50 cars in a year, that would be a lot.
Yeah.
25 would probably be a lot.
That's in Roscommon you're talking about.
I'm talking about Roscommon.
Yeah. Well, that is a lot, considering
Well,
the population in those days.
Oh yeah.
Well, how many, didn't Carpenters have a hotel out here on this side of the lake?
Yeah, I mentioned it a couple
Yeah.
times in the Carpenter Brothers.
Carpenter,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was the
Lippert's-
Cole Hotel, the
Clifford
Carpenter
still have them,
Hotel,
don't they?
the Skinsley Hotel. Yeah, and then there was Mrs.
Burdell's had a big one.
Cheney, and then the
Yeah.
Burdell Hotel, which
Yeah.
is Flag Point now.
Right.
Is
That was Burdell
condos?
Hotel.
Are those condos in there where that?
Yeah, the condos are there
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Where that is?
But Burdell family is a real old family there. Yeah.
Well, you must have known the lake very well in those days.
Well, we'd go out there with our bicycles.
Yeah.
We'd
What did
go
it?
out there and picnic and
Oh, we had a lot of
it
pictures.
was only 5 miles over the hill, but it was rough going. But you'd get out there in a couple hours. And, you know, you could spend the day and come back
No
in.
pavement then either, did
Well, you could go anywhere you wanted on the beaches, probably. Nothing
Oh
was
yeah.
owned privately.
Nobody
Yeah.
ever said anything.
No.
You see, the property there, after the Depression, just before that time, it used to be $2 a front foot. Then it got to be 5 and then 10. And then in the early 30s, it got up to $50, 55. Omacher sold. Omacher family was a real old family there. Yeah, I knew everybody on the lake.
Well, he had the barber shop and they all.
He was a shoe shine boy, you know.
Was there any particular place you liked to swim better than any other?
No, there
No,
was.
same.
It was the only part was the east side of the lake was closer to us and had less rocks. Around Cheney Point and in there, that was rocky, all around there. But the upper northern end, that was all sand. But the west shore had rocks, so we never even bothered with the west shore. That's where the Chicago people were. They were all. The Kaufman family had been here a great number of years, and they were. He later helped build Cliff Durant's castle on the river. Fred Kaufman, that'd be 1929 and 30. And then, and he built the elevators and part of he built the movie theater there in Greeley. Yeah. There was a lot of those import people became, industrious around here that came in here. They were looking for work. He was a Brinks guard, a prize fighter. He was everything. Yeah.
I was going to ask you now about, let's go back to Roscommon and going to school. Where did you go to school?
I went to school just across the street there. I lived across the street, so I
Well, they
went
had
to
it in the middle, where the middle
my
school is?
My school is where the Masonic Hall is now.
Oh, where the Masonic Hall
That
is?
was called the middle school.
Oh, okay.
There might have been 75 of us in there.
What was
3
it?
grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Where'd you go to the first grade?
The first grade, you see the Masonic Hall?
Uh-huh.
They move it across the yard where the middle school is now, and that was the high school.
Oh,
And
okay.
the small grades. First grade, right on up. Well, till you come to the 6th, then we cross the road this way to an old church. It was the old Episcopal church or something. And we had the 6th, 7th grade, and 8th grade there. Yeah.
Well, you never had one teacher for all the grades then. You had classes and went...
Oh, yeah, we had
Yeah.
different teachers. Yeah.
But you had the same teacher for the first, second, and third grade.
Oh, yeah, and the 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
The 3rd, 4th, and 5th was all one teacher. The 6th, 7th, and 8th was one teacher, and the 9th, 10th, and 11th
Was one teacher?
was 2 teachers.
2 teachers.
That's all. That's all you had.
Did you like the teachers? Were they
Oh,
interesting?
yeah, we didn't
Good?
have any problems. I got kicked out of school in the 10th grade. I tried to lick the superintendent, and he kicked me out of school. And
Well,
I
tell me
came
about
home and
that.
I told my mother about it. She said, I said, I just quit school. And I didn't hear my dad come in, and bang, I got a bang side the head, and down I went. I got up again, and then down I went again. He says, come on, we're going over to school. So he marched me right up in front of that high school. In the 10th grade I was. He walked me right up to the superintendent. He says, Mr. Kuhn, he says, if you have any more trouble with this fella, just let me know. And put him right here in the front row where you can watch him. And of course I graduated.
Well, I'm curious, do you remember why you got upset with the superintendent?
Oh, I didn't care much about authority.
Oh,
Most people didn't.
yeah.
You know, a lot of kids don't. They have
That's
to be
right,
taught.
Yeah.
You had a pot belly stove in there, didn't you, with
Oh,
wood
yeah.
and coal wood in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were regular hellers. We tried to plug those stoves up so they smoke and then we get out of school. We were typical boys. Typical boys.
It's doing okay. Good. This is fascinating. I'm enjoying it so much.
Oh.
Really great. Well, let's see now. That's cool. What about the churches here?
Oh, the churches. Well, I signed the pledge when I was about in the 5th grade that I would never
The
drink.
Congregational was here, wasn't it?
Congregational church. It's still a congregational over
But it
here.
was
I lived right
stone
below.
church then.
And my
Stone.
mother was a Methodist to begin with, and my father was raised by Catholics.
We had little Catholic church there,
And we
but
had
no
little
priest.
Catholics, right?
The
The priest
priest.
had come down from Grayling.
Yeah,
That's St. Mike's.
Mhm. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested in the pledge. What?
Oh, the
Did they
pledge?
go around?
Well, they just wanted to be sure that we wouldn't be cursed with drinking.
When you were in school,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
was at church.
This
You
was
had
in the church,
Oh, I see.
not in the school. This was in the church. And we had two classes there. One was a live wire class, which I was in, and the next class was the Beacon Lights. That was the boys of the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. We were in the 4th and 5th grades. And the two classes. So there came a time when they decided that alcohol would be bad, so they made us sign a pledge. They didn't make us. They instructed us. You see?
Did it prove a value later on? or-
Oh, yeah, I never drank. I never was a drinker.
That's an awful lie.
Well, it hasn't ruined your life, whatever.
No.
It's healthy and going
No,
strong.
alcohol didn't ruin my life.
No, that's for sure. Well, let's see, here's the teachers. What kind of social life did you have as a teenager? Did
Wonderful,
they have dances,
wonderful.
parties,
Dances all over the country, and by then we had cars, and so we'd go to Johnson's Rustic Dance Palace, we'd go to the Lyric, we'd go to Beaver Creek, we'd go to South Branch. These are town halls.
Now, the Lyric was out here at Higgins Lake.
Mrs. Fraser's husband run
Husband
it.
had the Lyric.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they had the Lyrics.
And he run it with an iron hand. But then there was another, how about this one out here on this side of the lake, the Ritz?
There was the little gem, and then there was one on this side of Higgins Lake
A nice big dance
called
hall, the Ritz.
the Ritz. And two down city boys, flatlanders, came up here, and Ray Dietz was a part owner, and Harry Tripp was the other. He was from California, so he'd bring up his Californians. So we had lots of music, good band, lots of dancing. We'd go to Luzerne, and stay putting her all night long on Saturday if they had a dance over there. He built a great big dance hall. Bill Dieter built a great big dance hall, and I'd go with my dad. And at that time, if you weren't careful with these Model Ts and the newer cars, horses would be sleeping in the roads, and cattle. You could, and one time, some of our group run over the horse's legs.
Oh.
Tanny Murphy and Rupert Pearsall, yeah, they run right over 'em. But they got up. They didn't kill them, or it didn't break them up.
What about deer? Did you?
Well,
problem with
deer was not so plentiful then. The
Oh, they
one
weren't.
buck law brought the deer back.
Oh,
the
in
one-
other words, they could shoot all they wanted then?
Oh yeah, they didn't have any problems at all with deer. There wasn't that many deer.
No, there weren't any.
No.
Because they were shot or because they just
No,
weren't there?
because they didn't develop until the country developed. You see, it had to grow up into brush before the deer developed. And now they've found out through hit and miss work at it that all you got to do is burn a little and cut a little brush off, and your deer will get along good. They're over hunted, you know, and then that's the way it is. But when they came in their peak, they came in about 41 into a peak. There was deer from hell to breakfast all over the place. You know, just a lot of them.
I was going to ask you about the dress. What did the girls wear in those times?
Oh, well, we had to wear nice, I don't
Is
know.
that fan going?
Yeah, it is. I turned it way down so it might not come on.
Well, I shut it off. The fan can't run.
Well, can't you hear it?
Yeah.
That's all right.
That doesn't shut the fan off from the regular deal,
Oh,
Duane.
I see.
Yeah.
I'd have to.
Oh, it was about like, there was a stage in 28 where they wore quite short dresses,
26 when
The-
the Charleston was on.
a clarabelle and like that. And that's the year that women began to cut their hair.
Yeah.
Remember, you were
Yeah,
a
because
barber.
I started cutting hair then.
And they began to cut their hair, and they'd had quite boyish bobs then.
I started in 25 and got my state license in 27. 1927. I was 15. I was the youngest barber in the state.
That's a
Yeah.
I
Now, of course, you got to finish high school.
I still got that. Your barber's license is still around here or something. I've got a lot of stuff around, but I don't know where it is. I've never got it all together. You know, you think you're going to,
Yeah.
but you don't.
Well, if you ever do, why not Xerox a lot of it for the
Yeah.
Historical Society?
Yeah.
They would appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they'd be willing to, refund the cost of
Yeah,
it. If you,
uh-huh. Well, small photos and like that, but they've got a lot of the ones that I have.
Yeah. I was thinking like the license would be interesting to have Xeroxed.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
uh-huh. Another thing I think, well, this isn't so old, but I keep things. It's funny how you keep things. But I look at this every so often, and I never, this isn't so old. What is it here? No,
Yeah.
you go ahead, Duane, I don't know.
Oh,
what-
no. I just.
Well, I was going to ask you a question. I remember.
Look at that, now that's a 2 cent,
Oh, right.
no,
Right.
right now they're 19. Isn't
Right.
that cute?
Certainly is.
I just
Right.
kept it.
Right.
There's a lot of mementos like that kept by people that you'll never hear about it.
Yeah, and they throw them out. Kids
You'll
come
never
up.
get about it.
Yeah.
I know in Detroit we had a lot of difficulty between Catholics and Protestants. One would go to school on this part of the street and the other on the other part, and they'd throw stones at each other. Was
We
there any
never had
problem?
that trouble here.
No.
No, the Catholics and the Protestants got along fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was never any hate generated. It must have been hate generated by your people down there.
Yeah.
Now we had I was in West Branch, and there was some because I went to a Catholic school, and some of my best friends went to public school. But we were all. But if when we were little, we'd get mad at each other, and they used to call us cat lickers, and we called them pup lickers, and we had a few. We had a few Episcopalians, and we called them Episcopalful. Isn't that awful?
Yes.
You know, we in where I grew up in a public place, that sort of stuff was kind of frowned on as I was a little bit of a boy, because I'll tell you, when you're in business, you're after the dollar. You're not after what kind of religion he's got or where the hell he come from. You know, so I knew all the Catholic boys and all the Protestant boys, and I had everybody has favorites among your peers, but there was no hate. There was no hate there. No. Very little. Once in a while there'd be a family that pop off. Once in a while there'd be a family. Generally, it was a Protestant family that kind of didn't like the Catholics. You know, didn't like.
Well, they were a minority here, very much so, weren't they?
But they were in a minority, yeah. It was about 50-50.
Now, prices, people that, the old Price, there was a big building, a huge one of the, well, it was the
That was
largest,
northeastern Michigan's
it was the
largest
largest
store.
grocery store. It's where Ames's store
Be like
is now.
Glenn's down here.
And it was a huge store, and then up above was their basketball, where they played
Gym. That would
basketball.
be the
was
gymnasium.
gym up above there.
That
And-
burned in 29.
Oh.
See, our school I didn't graduate from the new school, that middle school over there. It was built in 31, and I graduated from the Masonic Hall, which was a schoolhouse, in 30. In 30. And the school I graduated from wasn't even accredited. The state had those rigid rules at that time. No, it wasn't even accredited. But I took Latin and algebra and geometry,
You had some good teachers.
solid
then.
geometry, and
Who
all
was
of it.
one of your teachers? They lived out to the lake for years. Mrs. I can't think of her name. I'm getting like.
So the two my high school teachers were Kuhn and Stillwagon and
Ivor Price.
well, she was late.
Yeah.
Ivor Price and Irma Gates.
Were they generally pretty young, or were they?
Oh no, they were firm, great teachers. Mrs.
One's gonna live
Not
there.
Cisco, but
Yes, but she was. Oh, she was.
she was our teacher. She was county school commissioner here too. She was probably the most dedicated teacher that we had in this county.
Emma.
She and Elsie Hollowell.
Emma Wise.
Elsa Hollowell and Emma T. Wiseman were probably the two best qualified teachers that this county ever had.
Well, that was quite a curriculum you were mentioning there, that you had all those different subjects.
Oh yeah, well they were solid.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you had to have those in our school, but it wasn't even accredited. See, we had outdoor toilets, things like that. So that's why this new school, and that would have went along like that, but they decided to integrate with Garish, and they called it Garish Higgins. And they had another word for this integration, but I forgot. Consolidated.
And then they've got
Became
St.
a
Helens.
consolidated school.
Got St. Helens in there now.
Yeah.
Too.
Somebody was telling me there's a lot of anger about that consolidation.
Oh,
Yeah,
terrible.
there is.
What?
Why was that?
Taxes.
Well, they feel left out in St. Helens, things that they do.
Oh, are
up
you
here
talking
at
about
About
the
the
consolidation now
No.
or
no.
then?
Then.
Yeah.
Well, that consolidation was the anger came from Roscommon because they wanted it, and Garish, they didn't care how in the hell they got it. They just didn't care. All the anger that I ever saw as a boy, which would I be 17 when I graduated, I'd be 15, 16 years old when they were talking up this in a consolidation, was mostly right here in town.
Why were they angry about it?
Well, I don't know. They just wanted to be number one.
Okay.
You see, they didn't want any hitchhiker like Gary coming in here with a batch of kids. They wanted Roscommon. And they didn't like that Gary Higgins. See, it was always Roscommon High School.
Right now there's
Oh,
trouble
I
because
see.
they say, with St.
Yeah, they
Helens
had a lot of trouble over that.
is a long ways, they figure, too far away, that maybe they should be in the west. They'd like get rid of St. Helens, the property tax and like that, but they're in our county.
Sure. And they've overdone that just like they've overdone everything else.
Yeah.
Schools, buses, and everything. You can see it.
Yeah.
It's getting to be a labor. The property taxes are up for votes.
Yeah.
Hell, they're all having problems over it.
Well, it is, but
But they're educating them.
yeah, there's some smart
And then
kids
there's a
coming out
group
there.
of people that don't think the kids are learning a damn thing.
A lot of it's a parent's fault.
How much do you know about how much they're learning?
I don't know them all. I don't know.
You
all
don't
the
know too
people
much about it.
All the people I meet are absolutely delightful. So that's all.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
What I'm getting at, well, that's a good way to get through this world. Delightful. To my knowledge, one kid is smart.
Yeah.
See, I told that to a woman. I said, well, I heard her complaining in the store just about a week ago. And she says, well, all I can tell you, mister. I said, well, some kids are smart and they'll go through their A students with no problem. And some you got to push. But they're smart enough.
I think.
Then there's some that are dumber than hell. And they are.
Duane, I think you turned that other fan on, is what you did.
But you turned
I didn't touch it. I didn't touch down there. I think you turned that other fan on instead of turning it off.
Stop this a second. Well, I'll ask you a question while he's busy. Did you used to go for sleigh rides and hay rides? When you were here?
Yeah, we had sleigh rides, but we never. I don't. Yeah, on a few hay rides, but not a lot. You know, they're coming back now. Hay
No,
rides.
that wasn't.
Uh-uh.
That was no big thing.
No.
No.
No, that was no big thing. Where we had our fun was in the church socials. The church was very active then.
Which
And-
church was that?
The
I'm
Congregational
a
and the
Catholic.
St. Mike's Church.
And I worked in all.
Both of those
Both of them,
churches.
yeah.
Both
From
of
the
those
time I came
churches.
here from West Branch in '31, I
Yeah.
worked in the church. I helped build the
Yeah.
other one. We had a nice one, but we got this beautiful big one.
And your
now.
schools now, as I remember the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades, we had a teacher in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. His name was Artis. And he was a principal. But he run the high school. He was a principal too. But he worked in those grades. He would take us on Saturday and we would walk 3 miles or ski out to Wayne School. That's Sweetown. That's Sweetown. Over here, that's Chicago. Stuckey and Helen and that group sold all these sweets that come from Chicago, from Sweden. All this property up here. You know, the land of plenty. Could grow anything, you know. The long, hard winter bugaboo was over.
Well, there's a
you know,
Sweet Town out here. They call it.
That
Sweet
never
Town.
happened. That was
Oh,
Sweet
I
Town
never
out
heard of
here.
that.
A lot of people that came up here from Chicago were never Swedes.
Yeah.
And there was a Cedarman's.
Oh my
Oh.
God. Cedarman's, Oslings. Oh my
Well,
God.
where just about was it exactly?
What, pardon?
Yeah, where was Sweetown exactly?
Sweet Town came from where the road you come in on. From there, south to the end of Higgins Lake.
Oh.
That was Sweet Town, the whole east side of Higgins Lake.
Oh, okay.
What was
That
the
was
guy's
Sweet
name
Town.
that was a tailor out there?
Oh, his name was Harold.
He married a Cedarman girl.
Yeah, he married a Cedarman.
But there was a lot of Swedes out there, and they were good. They
Oh,
all
yeah.
turned into good carpenters.
Martinsons.
The Martinsons.
Yeah.
They thought when they came up here and bought this land that they were farmers. Well, they got here and it's a sand pile.
It's just a trailing sand, you
Yeah.
know.
So they had to do something else. So they got in the carpenters, and they turned out to be real good carpenters.
You know
most of
about the
them.
geophysical part of it, the Houghton mud and the
Right.
grailing sand. You've heard that.
Right.
Well, let's see sand piles.
Ogren. Ogren was the name of them.
Ogren, Harold Ogren.
Oh, but
yeah.
there were a lot of Swedes out there, right from the
Oh yeah, there was
Now, like all the-
Johnsons and
the Oslings. Those
Soderholm.
women are Skagabergs, and they're right from
Skagerberg.
Norway or Sweden. Yeah, but they
Soderholm.
called it Swedetown.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of families there.
Were they still speaking the
Oh
home
yeah,
language?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Most of them stopped in Chicago for a while before they came up here. See,
Yeah. See,
and they
this was a
worked
time
until
of
they get
this
a little.
was a time of transition. In that those they made their own roads. Old Wilhelm Johnson and Alex Johnson and old man Soderholm. They made their own road on the lower part of that. The freeways cross it now. They made their own road all the way in and up to the hill, you know, so that they could use it. They used teams and shovels. That's the way they did it. They built their own roads. They told me that. Yeah.
Well, how did you two meet each other?
How did we meet each other?
Uh-huh.
Oh, we went probably to dances.
Dances.
Different places.
Dances.
He'd come to he had a car, you know. He could go all over. And I
Is
was
that
in West
unusual
Branch.
for those days?
No.
Uh-huh.
Well, at those days, we thought nothing of going to, when we were young, we went to they had beautiful J-Hops parties, you know, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
kids do now. But we all went.
This
I
is the
had
days of the
pretty
big bands.
clothes. We could dance together. I
How
guess.
old a
We were
woman
good
are you?
dancers.
I'm going on 75.
Yeah.
You don't remember the days of the big bands?
Oh, sure. I remember.
Okay.
Where did you live then?
Highland Park, Michigan.
Oh, that's where you came from.
My God, Harlan Park's all gone to
Yeah, right.
heck, hasn't it, huh?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, Harriet's family came out of Chicago, I think.
Who?
Harriet Williams. Harriet Williams. Her name was Brower. Bill Brower. They all came up here and they all made it. He raised his family.
I remember when they got married about the time we did.
Mhm.
And then, now this, for the last few summers, she's been renting her little guest house to some friends of mine well, they were from Flint.
Mhm.
But she rents that little
Mhm.
guest
Yeah,
house.
I know this. Yeah.
They're nice people.
Oh yes, delightful.
Yeah, Marie and,
Some of the delightful people.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're nice
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Well, does Esther Cisco come back up here at all?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Dan, are you ready, honey?
Yeah, I'm ready to pack up from here.
Shoving off, are you?
Yeah,
Huh?
this is our grandson.
I do too.
This is Mrs. Gilbert.
We're taking an
How you doing?
interview here for history.
See, he's the oldest man in town, so they interview him.
Oh.
When I pedal
One of the
papers
most
and shine
distinguished
shoes
men in
around the
town.
lake. And we went places then, Dad. Yeah. This fella is from Las Cruces in New Mexico.
That's a long way.
Yeah.
You got a lot
How
of
did
heavy
How
clothes?
did he end up down there?
Well, his mother's down there.
Oh.
And
that's a
his
good reason.
family. Yeah, his family's there.
They moved down there from here?
He hangs out at the Statler Hilton. Or is it it isn't the Statler, is it?
Las Cruces.
No,
Las
what do you
Cruces
call
Hilton? It's a Hilton.
it? Just the Hilton.
He worked in the hotel.
I worked in the Statler in Detroit,
Oh, look at that.
and I worked in Miami. We didn't always stay here.
Did you want something, Dan?
No, I just came to say goodbye.
Oh, let me
Okay,
turn.
honey.
Wait a minute.
Watch your.
Cord. Okay, there it goes.
Hmm.
See, what should I? What?
Well, we
anything
covered
further?
the churches and the schools.
schools and the social life. With
Yeah.
food. What did you used to eat?
We always had cows. Partner, all the families had cows, and that was another one of my jobs. I'd go down and get the cows, Jim Sly's cows, and be one or two others. I'd bring them all up for 75 cents a week.
For the,
You
you
know?
bring them to their house so they could
I'd
milk them,
bring
and
them
then
to
you
their
had
house,
to
they
take them
could
back.
milk them, and then I'd always bring them back out at night. I don't know who took them in the morning, but I'd bring them in at night because my cow was down here too, old Sandy Walker, and there was a railroad fence there, so the cows were all up here on state property, and
You
nobody
see-
rented it. They just stayed there.
Where that parking lot is at the bank now, that man had
That was a cow
house
yard.
up in front, Carlson, a big old house.
All the way
And-
back to the sidewalk.
And that was a big garden
pasture.
there, and
Cow
it's cow
pasture.
pasture. And when our son, this boy's dad, was born, and we lived over in that big house, he had quite a time with the formula. And somebody said get milk from one cow, because we didn't have all these other stuff then. That's been 60 years ago. So we got milk from that man. Yeah, he kept saved just enough milk for that formula every day. But then, you used your milk. We churned. You had to churn your own butter. And I know my dad, in West Branch, we had a farm, and we had a regular slaughterhouse. And in the fall, you killed cattle and made saw. You did all that yourself. My dad could do it all.
Oh, sure.
Mother wasn't. My dad was German, and he came through Windsor. But my mother was Irish, so she couldn't talk. He could talk German to everybody, but she never, But he could do things.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
he had it rougher.
Yeah. Well, you
They
had
were
to.
orphans, and
They had to do that.
like
in
your
those
dad was
days.
an orphan.
What were we talking about?
Food.
Food, what you had to
You had
eat.
your potato-
Oh,
everybody had gardens
Everybody had a garden.
and chickens.
I used to pick potato bugs. That was all garden over there. We owned all the way at the corner. And I'd pick those potato bugs and hoe. Oh, yeah. We ate good. We ate good.
Oh, made your own bread.
Everybody made their own bread. Yeah.
I remember when we first got married, we lived on about $5 a week.
You see,
Because milk was a dime, hamburger was a dime a pound.
yeah, 3 pounds for a quarter,
And you did,
3 dozen eggs for a quarter. When we were married, that'd be
and
1930.
they'd peddle it. I used to get eggs right and milk right here at the
But
door.
the bread, before we got a bakery here, the bread all come on the railroads, and they come in boxes. And these bread boxes, when they take the bread out of them, they would go out alongside of the grocery stores. They were about square
Oh,
and
they
about
kept 'em.
3 feet by 3 feet high and 3 feet long. And I had a top on it with a latch, and everybody sat on the boxes
Oh,
all along. You ever remember the bread boxes? They were all along these stores, Anna Kiley's, J.J. Price, and McCready's. Yeah, sure. Then came that local option in the bootleg days. That came all in during that time. That one man McCready's store there, he had Crocs, big, 50-gallon, 25-gallon, 10-gallon, 5-gallon, all on the top of the front of his store. He had a place built up there.
What
Because,
was-
well, you made your own
You
sauerkraut.
made your own home brew. And
Oh.
sauerkraut, home brew. Everybody made home brew.
Oh, and your pickles, you dill pickles, you know, you dill them in
Oh,
those
your
big
pickles.
crocks. And, well, everything like
Oh, yeah.
pickles and sauerkraut,
Yeah.
you had to keep that for the winter, you know, so you would make stuff out of it.
Was it pretty tough during the Depression?
Not really, not really. My
Not
dad
here,
was
we
a
didn't
barber,
notice it.
and we had the shop there. And he taught me how to work, so I just worked. We never always had money.
Yeah, there weren't
Always,
many,
I never did see
there weren't many people here.
a hard
Very,
time.
you know,
And during the Depression in these little localities and the farm, people stayed right on.
yeah.
The places that was tough in the Depression was the cities. They couldn't do anything because they didn't have anything to do with it. The same problem exists today. All those families running wild on the streets. That's a shame.
In later years, my mother and dad were caretakers in Detroit, an apartment building. And when I went to Detroit, I'd take the bus down to 6 Mile and go into
Park?
Highland Park. And I'd take the bus, it was going to Woodward. And I'd get off at Highland Park and take the 6 Mile bus out to Gratiot and 8 Miles where my folks lived. Yeah. Yep, I wouldn't do that today though.
You think you've heard enough?
Well, I think that's very good, and I thank you.
Here's one story one of the Gardner boys told me, and he was the card of all the Gardners, one of them. There was 2 or 3 of them, but this was Clyde. And Clyde Gardner told me when he would come to Roscommon with his father, they would come over here for his uncle was the first sheriff in this county, Pat Roach. He was the first sheriff in this county. So they didn't have a jail. So whenever they'd fight all the way around that block there was saloons, see, when the lumberjacks had come to town. And I think there was 17 legal places to buy. Some of it was in the hotel. There was 2 or 3 right along the railroad there, and 2 or 3 down through there. In the livery barn, your uncle run that, Louis Kazoo. Anyway, he would bring him to town with the team, and then they would go back to Houghton Lake. That's before they moved back to Roscommon from Houghton Lake. See, they had these lumber booms there on the lake, and they had to ship them out the Muskegon River. So there was a lot of activity, a lot of work. So Clyde said, I said, well, what about other things, Clyde? Well, he says there was the whorehouses. Well, I says, what about them? Well, he says there was one right there just up from the cemetery, off to the right, below, right where the plant is, where I helped get that plant, you know. They said,
Out there in 18.
yeah, on 18 south. He said, we'd pull up to this, and they had whiskey and beer, and he says, my father would go in, and I said, what did you do? He said, oh, I waited out there a long while. And he says, till the old man got tired of drinking and raising hell, and then he says, we'd go on to Houghton Lake with the team. And that's 22 miles over there.
Yeah. And on the gravel road too.
On gravel road. No gravel road. It was dirt road.
Dirt road, yeah.
No gravel road. Dirt road.
Horse's hoofs couldn't take that today in the paper.
No.
No, it'd have to be dirt.
It's really